What's up, losers? I'm Depressed, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorite anime and manga of all time, Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. Jojo's Bizarre Adventure is a series that never ceases to fascinate me. Calling it bizarre doesn't fully capture just how utterly baffling its existence is. This is a series that was created in a black and white medium, yet is widely known for being incredibly colorful. It's a series that at times is so ridiculous you'd swear it's parody, yet has seemed so moving it would be disrespectful to call it anything other than sincere. It's a series where I can unironically say that one of my favorite fights involves a dog, a Frenchman with a flat top, and a vampire named Vanilla Ice. But what baffles me the most is the buck wild fandom that JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has cultivated, specifically in America. There's a lot in the American JoJo fandom that's worthy of discussion. Well, one issue I find particularly fascinating is the debate within the fandom on whether or not JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is gay. These fans' perspective isn't just, I had a different interpretation of the series as you did. It's more like, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is this super manly, super straight show, and anybody who says it's gay is wrong. Like, you couldn't even possibly look at this series and see that it's gay. This is hilarious because JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is by far the most queer-coded series I've ever seen in general. I'd argue that it's even gayer than a lot of stories explicitly about gay romances. As a JoJo fan myself, I never really took this debate all that seriously. I just thought it was a sort of long-running in-joke, but nope. Apparently, in reality, there's a lot of homophobic fans that really don't want this series to be gay. So, in order to shut these people up forever, I am going to objectively prove that JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is gay. Vocal percussion on a whole nother level coming from my mind. So here's a little context about the series. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a manga that's been continuously running since the late 80s. Each major arc of the series is sectioned into parts, each of which follows a different protagonist in the Joestar bloodline, who coincidentally has the nickname Jojo. Throughout its 40-plus year run, the art style has changed drastically. The story was initially inspired by Fist of the North Star, so the characters are ridiculously jacked. The first two JoJos are essentially hyper-idealized versions of a manly man. Even though Part 3 got away from the Fist of the North Star aesthetic, it still drew characters as insanely beefy. You know that meme where anime teens look like full-grown men? That's literally how these characters are drawn. However, during Part 4, author Hirohiko Araki shifted to an art style that included sleeker, more androgynous character designs. By the end of this part, characters looked completely different than when they were first introduced. He would continue to refine his style into the utter masterpiece that it is today. Araki has taken some of his older characters and drawn them in his new style, so you can see just how much his art style has evolved from the beginning of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure to now. All things considered, it's not hard to see why homophobic fans view JoJo's Bizarre Adventure as this pinnacle of heterosexual manliness. If you're a fan starting JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for the first time, you'd be getting a very different version of it than what it resembles today. While the early parts don't make up a lot of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure as a whole, they're still pretty long. In the anime, the first two parts stand as Season 1 with 26 episodes, and Part 3 totals 48 episodes. So if you're just starting with the series, you're going to spend a lot of time with the old designs before you get to where we are now. Unless, of course, you skip parts. Which if you do, don't ever admit it to a JoJo fan or they'll literally rip your throat out. Now it'd be easy to assume that people who claim JoJo's isn't gay only watch the first 3 parts, but this isn't the case. A lot of homophobic fans I see talking about this online claim that despite the art style change, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is still super manly and totally 100% not gay. Alright, now we can get into why JoJo's Bizarre Adventure actually is pretty gay.
percussion on a whole nother level, coming from my mind.
So partway through making this video, I burned the shit out of my arm at work. You know, I'm not gonna have this on for too long, but I just want to point out that fast food jobs suck. So, yeah. Before I mathematically prove that JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is gay, we first need to talk about something called queer coding. Queer coding is when a story uses certain signifiers to imply that a certain character is gay without explicitly stating it. An example of this would be him from the Powerpuff Girls. Based on his feminine clothes and flamboyant speaking patterns, we can infer that this character is gay without having it ever be outright stated.
Yes. Well, I love it when you girls fight.
Now, I'm not an expert on queer theory, so my definition might be somewhat lacking. However, it's good enough when discussing JoJo's Bizarre Adventure because of how utterly blatant the queer coding is in this series. The two most notable aspects of queer coding in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure are the fashion and the poses. Based on some of the images you've already seen, you might have a pretty good understanding of why this is the case. However, the queer influence in this series runs much deeper than just surface level looks. For instance, there are some characters that are based on queer icons such as David Bowie and Prince. This is a direct result of queer culture influencing the series. Also, a lot of the poses done by male characters are distinctly feminine. And that's not me just assuming a pose is masculine or feminine based on my personal biases. A lot of the poses are directly based on female models posing for fashion magazines. In some instances, there are even poses between two male characters that are based on intimate photos between a man and a woman, which recontextualizes a heterosexual photo into a homosexual one. So the series, being gay, isn't just characters dressing and posing like fashion models. The queer influence is baked into the art style. And I haven't even gotten to the actual story yet, which lends itself perfectly to a queer interpretation. One of the funniest things about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is how wholeheartedly uninterested Araki is in presenting meaningful straight relationships. Yes, there are women in the story, and yes, men marry them, but more often than not, the male protagonists have intimate moments of bonding with other men. My favorite example of this is in part 7. The arc focuses on the two male leads, Johnny and Gyro, and how their friendship develops through their shared struggle. Before charging into the final battle, they even decide to share a secret with each other neither has told anyone else. It's a very heartwarming moment. Anyways, our boy Johnny ends up marrying this random girl in the last panel of the story. She's drawn as more detail during a flashback in the next part, but Araki obviously put more effort into building the relationship between Johnny and Gyro than Johnny and his wife. Even in the earlier parts that are considered super manly and not gay, the narrative primarily focuses on the relationships between men and how these relationships develop through shared adversity. There's only 2 parts where this isn't the case. Part 6, where the narrative focuses on female relationships, and Part 8, where there actually is a meaningful heterosexual relationship, but the woman in said relationship is an alternate universe version of a male character in Part 4. Don't ask why this is a thing, it's complicated. The primary focus on same-sex relationships, along with the queer aesthetic of the art style, make interpreting JoJo's Bizarre Adventure as a queer text very easy. In fact, these elements are so upfront and center, I'd say that reading it as a queer text should be the default.
Vocal percussion on a whole nother level, coming from my mind.
Homophobic fans do have counter-arguments to what I presented, but they lack any substance and are very easy to tear apart. One thing I hear a lot is that the fashion and poses aren't inherently gay, and you can just as easily view these aspects as super straight and manly because the story doesn't care about traditional masculinity. This is horseshit. This idea only works if you assume that we live in a society where the way men dress doesn't directly affect how masculine others perceive them to be. which is not how the world works.
I mean, come on. Straight guys can't even wear a pink shirt in public without having the phrase, I wanted to wear pink, but people would think I'm gay, so I need to clarify that I'm actually really manly and totally not gay, plastered on the front. You think they've got the balls to rock the crop top boob window combo like my homeboy Doppio?
The reason the stereotype that gay men dress effeminately exists in the first place is because in our society, we believe that straight men don't dress like that.
Side note, I'm aware that the Real Men Wear Pink campaign is to encourage men to fight for breast cancer awareness, which is a good thing. However, isn't it a bit weird that even in a situation where we're supposed to be fighting for the ones that we love, men still need to emphasize the fact that they are real men for wearing pink?
The other argument I see a lot is that there aren't many explicitly gay characters in the story. Therefore, the story can't be gay. Now, I could bring up how there aren't any explicitly straight characters in the story either, which would automatically nullify this argument, but I'd much rather point out how terrible the logic here is. It's essentially saying that if you tally up the number of straight and gay characters in a story, you can determine whether or not that story is gay. I mean, I guess you can do that if you want to, but that's hardly a compelling argument. And that's it. These are the only reasons we get for why the obvious queer influence in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure isn't gay. By now, I hope it's obvious that these people are willfully ignoring the queer influence in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure because they don't want something that they like to be considered gay. They're willing to accept the flamboyant fashion and Model S poses so long as no one points out that these are things commonly associated with the gays. But these are just a few bad apples, right? Surely the way homophobic fans respond to a heavily queer-coded anime isn't due to a wider issue in the way mainstream anime depicts masculinity, right?
Vocal percussion on a whole nother level, coming from my mind.
In this section, I'm going to use the term anime to refer specifically to your mainstream shonen battle anime. I'll be doing this because A, these types of shows are what most people associate anime with. B, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was published in Weekly Shonen Jump up until part 7, so it makes sense to compare it to series of the same ilk. And C, it will be annoying to continuously clarify that I'm talking specifically about shonen battle anime and not the thousands of different types of anime that have absolutely no relevance to this conversation. So one thing I forgot to mention about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is its cultural significance. If you look at the American fandom, you might think that this series is just a cult classic, a show that's popular in a small group of people that are utterly obsessed with it, yet in the wider culture, it's not that big of a deal. However, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is one of the most influential manga of all time. I would argue that it's probably as influential as Dragon Ball. Yet despite this, no work influenced by JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has even attempted to match its queer aesthetic. Even in works where the core concept is directly copy and pasted from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, these series still present themselves in a very conventional manner. Araki's art style is so far removed from the typical anime aesthetic that shows will briefly switch to his style, and that in and of itself is considered a joke. While practically no anime or manga sincerely use Araki's queer aesthetic, this joke is used so often that finding JoJo references in other shows is an incredibly outdated meme in the fandom. What gives, right? Do creators just have so much respect for Araki's unique vision they'd be ashamed if they tried to copy it? Well, maybe, but it's probably far more likely it's because none of these shows want to be interpreted as gay. I don't think it's that controversial of a take to say that anime can be very misogynistic. Men are often very muscular and they wear clothes to show this off. Any pose that they make are usually directly related to battle settings and are meant to show just how strong and cool they are. On the other hand, women are drawn in a heavily sexualized manner. They wear clothes that are obviously designed to appeal to the male gaze, and they will often be posed in order to show off the most desirable features. Even women who hold equal or more power to their male counterparts aren't allowed to have muscles. They are, first and foremost, eye candy. It's very clear by the way these series are drawn that they're made to appeal to a straight male audience. And that's not even taking into account the casual sexual harassment that happens so often is considered a cliche trope. Oh God, anime really was a mistake! But more than just being straight, these series are actively anti-LGBT. These shows make it very clear that queerness is something to be disgusted by. Men are not supposed to dress like women, and if they do, it should make you uncomfortable. When you take all of that into consideration, it makes the way homophobic JoJo fans regard the series make a lot more sense. They've been fed this idea through other shows that queerness has no place in anime. So when they see a show like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and like it, they come to the conclusion that it can't be gay because it can't be both good and gay. It has to be one or the other. That is what anime has taught them. I would also like to note that it's not just outwardly homophobic fans that anime has negatively influenced. Time and time again, I see straight fans who talk about anime and explicitly ignore very problematic aspects of it that definitely deserve consideration. Now, this has much more to do with misogyny and the treatment of women rather than homophobia, but I still think it's very important to mention. These things have become so normalized in anime that they don't even register as critiques anymore. For instance, if I were to complain that a guy grabbed a girl's boob without her consent, people wouldn't see that as a problem because all anime do that. And kind of a lot of them do, and that is something to be concerned by.
Vocal percussion on a whole nother level, coming from my mind.
Well, that got a bit heavier than I expected. So, are you a bad person if you don't think that JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is gay? Yes. Yes, you are. Look, I know, not everyone who thinks this is a blatant homophobe. I'm sure there's genuinely some people out there who think JoJo's Bizarre Adventures transcends labels and it shouldn't be seen as either straight or gay. I get it. However, the thing you need to understand is that gay people don't just call a show gay because they want to take it away from people. They do that because they don't have a lot of positive representation. In addition to the homophobic portrayals in mainstream anime that I've already mentioned, we also get fetishization of same-sex relationships with yuri and yaoi shows, which is a whole other rabbit hole I don't have time or energy to get into right now. And this problem persists outside of anime culture. We don't get a lot of canon gay video game or comic book characters, and the few that we do are typically made by people that aren't part of the community and have no idea what they're talking about. It's definitely getting better, but the majority of gay representation is bad. And we get even less meaningful representation for trans, non-binary, and asexual people. Oftentimes, the subtle aspects of a character or a story that connect with LGBT fans are much more meaningful than the actual representation that they get. And the reason homophobes don't like this is because they don't want LGBT people to feel comfortable in their fandom. If you look at any discourse involving a character in a video game, comic, or movie that the LGBT community views as a queer icon, you'll see homophobic fans claiming there's no possible way that character could ever be gay, despite there being no reason that they couldn't be. It's the same thing homophobic weebs do with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's just a lot funnier there due to how unabashedly open it is about its queer influence. LGBT people essentially have to fight just to stay in a fandom for a show that they enjoy. And that's why you're not helping anybody when you claim that homophobes' opinions are just as valid as anybody else's. Now, of course, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. That's obvious. However, not all opinions are equally valid, and you should not respect them. When you've got one group who looks at a show and connects the story and characters to their own personal lives and get a lot of meaning from that, and another group who looks at the first group and says, I don't like the way you're looking at this story, you're wrong. How can you say that both of these opinions are equally valid? I know that as an SJW YouTuber, I'm kind of expected to try and convince people of the error of their ways, to show them the terrible ideas that they believe are wrong, and that they should convert to a more progressive outlook on life. But I kind of don't want to do that. I mean, I only have so much time and energy, and I don't want to waste it on homophobes and misogynists who don't really care to be better. I mean, I understand that's an important job, but I'm just a YouTuber, man. I kind of just want to be doing my own thing, you know? So, in conclusion, the next time someone asks you if JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is gay, you'd better say yes.
Hey, hope y'all liked the video. This one took a lot out of me. If you want, you can like and subscribe, or you can follow me at my Twitter here. Thank you.